And environmental governance here is measured primarily by 3 dimensions: the degree to which citizens perceive local governments as really being serious about environmental governance, meaning they're not taking bribes from the private sector to bypass environmental regulations; the degree to which citizens experience good air quality; and the degree to which citizens experience good water quality. And in 2024, we were able to survey almost 20,000 citizens. So this next graph shows us the results for each of those 8 dimensions. And you will see that environmental governance, unfortunately, is not doing very well. Of the 8 dimensions that we measured through PAPI, environmental governance came in second after e-governance. So there is a real gap in citizens' expectations, and this reflects what we were hearing across Asia. Because it is such a big challenge, cities are struggling. The good news is that there has been a gradual improvement since 2021. We're focusing on the last government cycle. So although we see a gradual improvement, there's still huge room for improvement in the eyes of citizens. This is nationally. So now let's zoom in to Vietnam's major cities. And here we're looking at the 6 centrally administered cities of Hanoi, Haiphong, Hue, Da Nang, Ho Chi Minh City, and Canton. So while performance on environmental governance has been improving nationally, what we see here is that with the exception of Ho Chi Minh City, environmental governance in the eyes of citizens has actually dropped in all other major cities. So that's not a very good trend. That's a trend that needs to be reversed. And perhaps we need to look at what Ho Chi Minh City is doing that is leading to some more positive appreciation by citizens. When it comes to looking at air quality, which is something that citizens really associate with effective environmental governance, we see that confidence in air quality has improved in central and southern cities, so that's very good news, but it has declined in the north, namely in Hanoi and in Haiphong. So that is something to be looking at very carefully, but we know that this is top priority now for both city authorities and central authorities. Now, at the end of the day, when we look at all 6 cities, in average, only 20% of the population said that they felt safe going outdoors without a mask. That's pretty low. That shows that this is a real priority. Finally, and this is more encouraging, when asked to what extent they believe that citizen authorities are taking bribes from the private sector to bypass environmental legislation, citizens actually there scored their city governments quite positively. Nevertheless, there is still much room for improvement, and we also see that in several cities, in 5 of the 6 cities, there has been a drop. So we still have to work on that public trust, in that public confidence of citizens, in how they view the seriousness of public administration and environmental governance. I don't have time to go through these 2 slides, but we have also collected data on how citizens are experiencing extreme weather events. And as all speakers have said so today, citizens are saying that they're experiencing more extreme heat, and they are experiencing more extreme flooding and more extreme rainfall. Citizens are very aware of these changes. So now I'm going to really hone into Hanoi City with a case study and bring a human face to what climate resilience actually means for Vietnamese citizens, and in particular for the most vulnerable citizens in the country. We conducted this case study in the summer of this year, in 2025, and we surveyed approximately 300 outdoor workers, which, as I mentioned, are amongst the most vulnerable members of our community. And we asked them to what degree extreme weather events in Hanoi are impacting their livelihoods, their day-to-day lives, their mental health, and their physical health. Unsurprisingly, it's having a big impact on them. When it comes to livelihoods, and when it comes to their day-to-day lives, it is flooding that has the most direct impact on livelihoods. Huge effects on people's income when we have flooding. It makes sense, they simply cannot go out to work. Extreme heat and extreme cold really disrupts daily life. Some workers are having to work at night to simply too hot to go out during the day. That means they're not with their families. That means that they're not taking care of children. They're not taking care of elderly back home. Here are some testimonies from some of the workers that we interviewed. We have one lady who says that she lost an entire week of income during Typhoon Yami. She's a metal scrap collector. Imagine what that does to a family. Imagine what that does at the micro level to development of a city, and what that does at macro level in terms of income loss, in terms of states having to step in to support vulnerable populations. When it comes to mental and physical health, unsurprisingly, it's vehicle fumes, air pollution that most impacts vulnerable outdoor workers. Across the board, that's what they told us most affects their capacity to live healthy lives in Hanoi. Here again, some testimonies from some of the workers that we interviewed. Here, a gentleman, a motorbike taxi driver, saying that he had chronic coughs as a result of the dust and fumes he was inhaling. Again, an impact at the individual level, but think about what this means for a city in terms of the pressure on its health system, in terms of the pressure that this means in terms of supporting workers that are no longer able to work. Now, we didn't only ask workers about the problems they faced. We also asked them about the solutions. What needs to change in order for Hanoi to be more livable for you? And for sure, they had answers. I don't have time to go through all the answers, but I was really struck by the first one. Almost 80% of the workers we talked to said, please just plant more trees. Just plant more trees. It will shade us from the heat, it will shade us from the sun, it would radically improve our experience of Hanoi. Planting more trees is relatively easy. Planting more trees is not too expensive. If we listen to citizens, we come up with solutions that have a direct impact in improving the livability of the city from a climate perspective in a way that perhaps is quite cost efficient. Of course, we also have more sophisticated answers that align very much to what our technical experts have been talking about, transitioning to more green energy sources, and a lot of emphasis on greater expanded public transport. So this is not to say that citizen data is more important than technical data, but citizen data does help us prioritize. Citizen data does help us identify what especially the most vulnerable community, members of our community, require in order to be able to really participate fully in a city. So, ladies and gentlemen, as my time is almost up, I just want to conclude with some key takeaways from the presentation. First and foremost, we saw that urbanization across Asia Pacific is bringing major environmental challenges to cities. This is not unique to Vietnam. All cities in the Asia Pacific region are struggling. But the good news, what we saw, is that in cities like Bangkok, like Beijing, like Ahmedabad, and Iloilo, citizen engagement, citizen participation is a big element in the solutions. In Vietnam, we saw that environmental governance has improved in recent years, but there are still significant gaps from citizens' perspective. Air pollution, extreme heat, and flooding are the biggest challenges for our residents. And vulnerable groups such as outdoor workers, persons with disabilities, the elderly, people with health conditions, they are disproportionately impacted by these extreme weather conditions. And finally, citizens not only diagnose the problems, they also help identify solutions. So to conclude, understanding these diverse impacts of how different groups of citizens are impacted is extremely important for policymakers like you here in this room today to design policies that really address the challenges that people are facing. For that, you need to embed citizen participation and citizen engagement into urban planning. You need feedback mechanisms, you need digital platforms, you need different groups of communities to engage with in order to be able to integrate that feedback into your planning and into your implementation and monitoring. That is making evidence-based policies and policies that serve for the most vulnerable and thus serve for everyone. Thank you very much.
Xin cảm ơn bà Phan Lan Anh. Once again, thank